I believe that each conversation, each interaction we have changes our life and molds us in so many different ways. To learn from the best, it's best to sit down, ask questions, and imbibe from all the stories of their lives. In order to normalize this, and in order to talk about the good, bad, the ugly stories of the lives of some of the most successful people in the country, I, Mannsi Agrawal, bring to you another episode of If I Had Not Failed on News 24, coming straight from Hotel Yakinyati. My guest today has had an enviable career and comes with a treasure trove of experience. A brilliant student, he graduated as a commercial pilot in 1964 and thereon went on to fly the Royal Nepal Airlines at that point and then the Emirates for 2 decades each. He is somebody who comes with so many anecdotes and stories and so much of vitality and energy and enthusiasm. He is somebody truly that has inspired the youth of this country and continues to do so. Please join me as I welcome, with a lot of humility and a lot of pride, pilot Prachanda Shah. Namaste, sir. Thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to me that you're willing to share years and years of experience through this interview. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm just so glad, sir, that we got a chance to talk to you. And this journey that we are going to start right now is not going to be so much about all your wonderful successes and all the good things about your career, but rather a bit more about your struggles, your difficult times and your failures. My first question to you, sir, is what do you consider your greatest failure and why?
It would be difficult to categorize as this one. As you say that there's a wise saying, failures are pillars of success, right? Which is quite true. I went to a school, St. Xavier's School in Godavari, and then due to certain circumstances, I had to change my school and transfer to JP High School, straight away on the 10th class. In the middle of I was there for about 2 months, and then we had a sort of a half-yearly exam on the subject of Nepali. We had to write an essay, and I just could not understand the meaning of that Nepali word, because as a boarder and a student of St. Xavier's, we were a little behind in Nepali language, the Nepali subject, Nepali curriculum and all that. And I had 2 friends, left and right, those who had done Shastri and Acharyas, and they had come back to study the English curriculum. I asked them, do you know what is this meaning in English? Because if I had known the meaning in English, I would have written it. And they didn't speak to me. They just didn't answer. They didn't talk to me at all. And that was the first time in my life I left a paper, blank paper, with my name and number and nothing on that, just a blank paper. That was a time when I felt a sense of failure, that I couldn't even write anything on this particular subject, because I didn't understand the meaning of that. If I had known the meaning of that, I would write it, because I wrote, I was able to write it, but then I just didn't know the meaning. And that gave me a sort of a knock that I have come to this school straight away in the 10th class, and I have not been able to write a single sentence, single word on my answer sheet. So it was, I consider that I have really failed in the sense that I have not been able to write anything because I didn't know about it. Going back to that, I said I should study more of Nepali. After the exams time was over, I approached the Nepali teacher. I said, I have left a blank paper because I didn't know the meaning of this. By the time some of the friends have told me the meaning of it, it was, Shah Shiksha co-education. If I had co-education, I would have written on it. But it was Shah Shiksha, I didn't know the meaning of it. And I asked him, sir, it's going to be tough for me to go through this year in Nepali subject. I need certain tuition. And he looked at me straight in my face and he said, you boys from Godavari, St. Xavier's School, you are very weak in Nepali. I don't think you will pass. And that was a kind of a alarm clock for me that it could lead to me a failure. And I was in Kathmandu, away from home. My home is in West Nepal. Away from home, and I had nobody to talk to. But I had a friend in the class who was ex-St. Xavier's. He had come there about 2 years earlier. Spoke to him. I said, "How do you feel about Nepali subject?" He said, "I wish I knew more of it. I had more command of it." Then I said, "Should we talk to this teacher?" So we approached him again. He said, "We need some tuition. Please help us." He said, "No, because you will not pass." But when I got my friend in front of him, he hesitated because he had seen him for a couple of years. And because of my friend's elder brother, who was a friend of his family, we got into this. And mind you, I took it very seriously. That sense of failure, not able to write a single word in my answer sheet, gave me a big kick, big knock inside me that I should attempt to get through this subject. And we went, we had tuition, I followed it very seriously. And at the end, after 6-7 months in that school, JP school, then when, remember SLC days, you would have a pre-SLC exam or something. And I finished all the subjects. I did that in all the subjects, as a matter of fact. Some subjects we were behind, like mathematics, they were ahead of us at 10th class, from where I came, because I came from 7th or 8th. And at the end of the 6 months of understanding that I need to work, I worked hard with my friend and all. And I was called by the headmaster. He said, "Nobody has ever secured this percentage of marks in the exams that you have achieved." That gave me a sense of now success from a way down at the state of failure to this level was because I felt the sense of failure, and it gave me forward push.
That's amazing, because your entire story right now sounds to me like a from a rags to riches story, the story of the underdog, the person who we never thought would be able to achieve, then goes ahead and wins. And the sort of growth curve and the learning curve is very steep. And I think that's beautiful, because that is really what a good story is made of. You learnt at that very young age that if you could work hard, you could achieve anything. How did that help you later on in life?
Oh, a lot. Well, I had a little bit of head start at that age than many other people, because I would sit down with my father and all. My father was a great lawyer and discuss about things and making decisions. I was making decisions on my own, because I was no guardians here. Right. So I was making decisions on my own, from, let's say, buying a paper and pencil to paying the tuition fees and making decisions as to what subject I want to study and how I want to study. So I was fortunate in a sense. But then, I should say, it definitely helped me a lot. I have not failed later on in my life, to be honest, because I've been a fairly successful as a student and all things, and also as a professional. But then there are times when you fail, and if you could perceive it. If you had asked me this question, say, when I was 30s, I would probably look from a different point of view. If I was in the 50s, maybe. Now where I am at this stage, with this experience, with whatever I have inside me, I look at it from a different perspective. But when I was younger, if I fail, I said, what will my future be? You got my point? Now, if I had, that was, even in 30s, I was very fortunate that I was a captain at the age of 24 in the airline. And at that time, if any failure I would say, what would be my future and things? So that would be in 30s when I was getting into jet age, and 40s, and then even the 40s, I then entered into the international, the airline business and all things would have. But now that you ask me, the aspect of what would impact in future for my success is not relevant. But let me refer back to early days. Yes, I did think of it, that if I fail, I may not be successful in my career, because I chose this flying subject. I chose this subject to pursue my career. Nobody forced me to do this. I chose it. And not only that, the Secretary of the Ministry of Education called me and he said, "Why do you want to go for flying? I want you to go and study economics and all things," which was my subject also. I would have interested in that, maths and all that. But then it did help me. It did help me to understand, visualizing, perceiving the state of failure, getting deeper into you. It so happened that I had no guardian, so I had to think myself. Later on, the teachers would come and help me. But there were teachers, the professor in the college, who probably didn't like me also. But then, it's your parents can guide you. Your parents can tell you, you can fail, but you can achieve better future and all. You can be successful. I would say that, in my case, it really worked out to go deeper into why did I fail, what do I want to be, what I want to achieve. So as a result, that failure, that degree of failure, that was one of the incidents I told you, but there are quite a few other incidents, and then being what I am today.
So you are saying that if you would not have failed, you would never have had the skill set, the mindset to be the strong person that you are today. Is that correct?
I was always confident of myself that I would achieve success. As I told you earlier, I had a head start. I was making decisions. I was traveling alone at a very young age, because I had to come all the way from West Nepal to Nepalganj and India and here. And then later on, the aeroplane started flying from Nepalganj and all. So, but I had that sense of responsibility earlier. So, sense of looking future, trying to talk to yourself. You see, communicate, you got to communicate first with yourself. That's how you communicate. You can communicate to others. I started communicating myself. I need to achieve that. There can be failures, so I will have to work hard. And this early stage where I failed to the point where I couldn't write a single word gave me such a knock at that stage of my student life that I went into the studies really seriously.
That's wonderful, and I'm just so glad that you talk about this early failure, because when you fail early, it has a bigger impact on you. Do you think that's correct?
Yes, in one way. As I said earlier, if I was in 20s, if I had failed in the teens and 20s and 30s, it has a different meaning. I'm sure you are aware of it. For a businessman, for example, if he fails earlier, he starts a new business. Go into that. But if he's really doing something up somewhere in the middle of his business career, if he fails, it becomes difficult to restart again. Although there are success stories where you fail and you start from the bottom, which is the success of a human being. In my case, I fell earlier. Later on, in flying, I did have certain difficulties. You all have some difficulties here and there due to circumstances that are not under your control, or due to circumstances that you are not able to bring out the best. That's when you need the teachers and the trainers to bring best out of it. Even here, if you want to bring a best out of me, your questions should be such that that I would be compelled to bring that answer to that level.
Right.
To that level.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's everywhere.
Right. That's wonderful. And in fact, I'm thinking about you like this now. I'm actually trying to picture a young boy goes to school, is unable to answer a question, comes back home, and rather than feeling like, this is not for me, he actually puts in the extra effort and he takes that as a push without having too many other people to support him at that point, because your family was not around, as you said. You were in charge of everything. You were making decisions. How do you manage to use that self-talk to do something like this?
I think I was tuned to achieve a success. Even at my young age, my seniors, my parents, my seniors, the teacher, they thought I could achieve, become a successful student, a successful professional in future and all that. I was, at the beginning, I didn't know how much I understood of their statement, but it struck to me that I could achieve something. I need to achieve something. I have to achieve something. There was a drive in me that I need to move forward. I was also playing sports because I was pretty good in sports. So even the the A teams of Nepal would call me to play football and hockey. So I would play that. I would go to Tunikal, play that, and then go to. I was living as a paying guest. I would go to that place, study myself. So I realized that I need to use the time properly. So compel myself to work hard. Putting pressure on someone to say that my son or my brother, kid brother and all, you work hard, you got to work hard is one thing. But to me, fortunately, by the blessing of God, it came to me myself. So that's quite, I feel pleased in the sense that it came from me myself.
That's wonderful. So you were basically self-motivated in whatever it is that you wanted to do, whether it was academics or sports, and even in your career later on. Let's say somebody is looking for motivation. Let's say we have a student who's watching this show with us today and they're looking for motivation, but they don't feel that spark inside of them. What would your suggestion be? To leave that particular project or, leave whatever it is, or to try and sort of motivate themselves, or to look for other people to motivate them? What would you think the strategy should be?
Okay. There's a multi-pronged approach to that. Sure. There's a multi-pronged approach to that. There's an approach by his parents, by the teachers, by his elders, and by himself. Now, not all people have the same characteristics. Some are different. Some, like among your own siblings, and some are different than others, even mine and all. What I think is that for the parents and teachers, they should understand the student. If whoever knows where the shoe pinches. So if the parents or the teacher tries to put his foot into his shoes, then they would understand him. That particular young fellow, the particular students, aspiring student, he could have problems of various from different corners. To do that, two things. First of all, he has to be motivated by the parents and the teachers and the surroundings and all. But that student, if someone is watching this program, what I would tell him is, failures one or twice, thrice, these things do happen. But what you should be aiming and achieving and looking forward to achieve success. And you can achieve success. Remember, achieving success, climbing a ladder doesn't climb in one step. If you want to climb a 100-step ladder, you have to take one at a time. Right? If you fall over the bench, you can go there. But if you fail later, it becomes difficult for a person to move ahead rather than failing earlier, because it is the time to learn. And it is also the time when you are young and able to take the guidance from the elders. So I would say, this is a multi-pronged approach to that, but everybody has to work. Everybody has to work. But that particular student has to be molded into such a state of that he or she understands what the parents mean, what the teachers talk, what the surrounding is. I'm sure, because today's world everything is so much exposed. Probably the boys know, the girls know about it. Yet they probably while away their time. One of the important things is to use the time properly, understand the value of time. Whether you fail once, twice, it does make a difference. But there's always, there is always a path of success that you can climb ahead.
That's wonderful. I love how you talk about the value of hard work, the value of time, and knowing that the ladder is there. You just have to climb it one step at a time. Which one do you think is more important, working or learning?
They all are important. They all are important. There's no doubt about that. They all are. the motivation, the attitude of that individual also makes a lot of difference to motivate yourself. Some people change subjects, for example, right? They work for that, right? But somehow after 1 year, they change the subject from science to maths to biology, or from science to arts or economics and all that. That is okay because he or she went through a period of not being able to make the correct decision, correct analysis of yourself. All the elders who were trying to help you, or even people who guide you into that, they probably fail to understand it. I know of in the school days, the children go through the counseling, and I hope the counselors give them the best of the information, best of ideas, best of approaches and all that. But it does have a certain, at times, if the student depends too much on the counselor, then he's depending only, but he's not perceiving what he's telling you, whereas your mind is for other subject or other direction, all things. In that case, you can have a slight difficulties in understanding, communicate each other. Therefore, I would say you need to motivate yourself and work hard also.
That's wonderful. I like how you say all these things, and right at the end you say you need to work hard, because I understand in your career working hard has been a very huge part of your story. Working hard, working at something, because to be in a profession for so many decades requires a lot of dedication. Where does that self-motivation as a pilot come from? Because the job that you're doing is a very high responsibility job. Whether it's a very high stress job or not, we'll discuss later, but it's got a lot of responsibilities. Where does that sense of being able to take responsibilities every single day come from?
Yeah, the fact that what you mentioned as responsibility, the word is very important. I must understand that I must be responsible. Anybody, a doctor,
of course,
a surgeon, a heart surgeon, for example, an eye surgeon, whoever it is, or even the train driver, right? Or even someone like you, for any profession. The responsibility is very important. The responsibility that you are taking, you are in this job, understanding the responsibility of that job itself is a very big thing for every one of us here. And then, secondly, what you got to do is, for me, especially as a pilot, the responsibility carrying people at the back. Each and every person is a VVIP for the corporation, for the company, because everyone, the company, the airlines is not for the owner of the airlines. The airlines, the planes are for the traveling public.
Right, the people.
Yes, the traveling public is very important. That's why the airline must gear up their policy, their marketing, their everything for to attract the passengers, the public, traveling public. That's where you make money, that's where you exist. Even the people who manufacture aeroplanes, like Boeing company, Airbus company, they manufacture aeroplanes for the need of the traveling public. You've got to understand that. So if I as a pilot, I knew that it was a responsible job. And it is a responsible job. And I consider myself that everyone has, whoever does, even if an ordinary job somebody does, there's a responsibility behind it. That to me, you need to respect each and everything that you do. I do read Gita. In Gita, there are two verses in that where Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that you got to do what you are doing in the best possible way. If you think there is somebody else doing it in a different job and it's better for you, don't envy that. Do yourself. If you are successful in what you are doing, you are successful. Because the degree of success, percentage-wise, you cannot measure it. The degree of the satisfaction, you cannot measure it. But, a person who is doing a simple job, he or she could be more satisfied than someone like me or the other person, right? But therefore, I always felt that my responsibility, my job is to take Mr. A, or Mrs. A, person, a man or woman, from A to B safely, deliver them to the final destination safely, fly the aeroplane safely, keep my co-pilot safe, keep my cabin crew safe, keep the airline safe, and then, of course, and I must be safe. So that's how you, even if corporate leaders, they have to think that way.
Of course.
It's the same thing. It applies to corporate leader. I talk to sometimes people like one of the Boeing president he was very friendly to me. I used to go to very often to Seattle. He would invite me for dinner and sit down, talk, even in the office. And I, observed people of that status. And they are the people who call the shots in the state. They could call directly the secretaries of foreign affairs or defense or whatever it is and get the things done. So that's powerful people. I have had that opportunity to talk to them, or even politician, president, vice president, prime minister, even the king of Nepal. I spend time talking to him. But I realize that wherever you are, you need to feel the responsibility, understand the responsibility, and deliver. Act accordingly. Deliver that responsibility successfully. That means you are responsible. You got authority, responsibility, and you need to understand you have accountability.
I love that you speak about authority, responsibility, and accountability. Which of these one thing is most important for the youth to move forward?
Do you know accountability is very important? And that is very much ignored by our people in this country. That's where we are in this state of affairs.
Okay.
I am accountable because, you see, accountability already gives part of responsibility in it and parts of authority in it. That's accountability. Otherwise, you cannot, the accountability, you come to that stage, you have the responsibility, you have the authority, and then you have the accountability. So therefore, to be able to, produce something, to be able to give a bottom line is the accountability. If you have responsibility and you don't do anything, that's useless. If you have authority and you don't even feel your responsibility, but you have both of them, you understand, you need to be able to give the account. You got to be accountable to the nation, to your family, to your children, to even right now, I need to be accountable. You are spending time with me, accountable to give this particular show what is important to that. And that's how it is.
I love this way you explained accountability so beautifully with responsibility and authority. I loved how you put in accountability because it's truly one thing. The moment each one of us, everybody, realizes how accountable we are for everything around us, it just changes some perspective inside us.
Of course. Of course.
Brilliant. That's just...
If every people in the high position feel their accountability, perhaps they would work knowing their responsibility and authority. If they knew what is accountability, and if you're geared up and they promise to be accountable, things would be different.
I love this perspective. I think this is such a beautiful thought to sort of come towards the conclusion of this interview with. And sir, it's been such a pleasure listening to you. My final question to you is this. The youth today are going through difficult times for different reasons, because of the pandemic and maybe for their own personal reasons, so much influx of social media and so many other things. What is the one thing that you can tell them from your experience that can totally transform the way they lead their lives and their professional lives specifically?
Very important question, because that's the youth is my favorite.
Of course.
The age group. And I love youth, I love to talk to them, I love to inspire them, I love to, I do get invited sometimes to talk to those people. And when I hear other speakers talk to them, and I feel really, uncomfortable because they don't address the youth. What we need to do is address the youth, not for what to do, address the youth to be the leaders of the future, to be the pillars of this nation, to pillars of the society. Sometimes I talk to the people in the master's level and all. When they do that, I've been called and spoken. I said, scoring high marks alone is not that. What is important in being a good citizen? Youth, they must understand that they are going through a phase where they reshape their future. All right, that's the important thing. The youth must understand that time is so important. Yes, yes, time to play, time to study, but do everything. I love sports. I play. Unfortunately, because of COVID things and all. You mentioned COVID. 3 days prior to the COVID, I'll come this related to the subject. 3 days prior to the Nepal went to lockdown, I sent a note to a friend of mine who is in the fairly good position. I said, please convey this message. Nepal needs to lock down because it is spreading out in Haryana and Punjab. And soon India will lock down. But we need to lock down, not only lock down, but educate the people. That masks, use of mask, self-isolation, self-distancing and all. If you don't do that, it's not going to work. I'm not a doctor, but I was going through this understanding the subject matter. And then, because it was something new. Even today is new. You have different variants, different, and then scientists are working so hard to get, yet they have been very successful, but they are still working hard to bring the various types of vaccine, other things. It is because very new. But on the other hand, on this COVID subject, I said they must lock down. And they did lock down after 3 years. And we at home, just listen to this, at home, me and my wife, we were here, we locked down 3 days prior to the day lockdown, government lockdown. And we were, said, because this is a serious business. Right. And I'm at that vulnerable age. I told my wife, you're also, at the time she was 65, and I was 2 years younger than what I am today. I said, you've got to lock down ourselves. You've got to be very careful. And we did lock down. And that message was passed on to the concerned people and locked down. But the youth today, what they should do is something new. It is not an easy thing. It's not like something that happens is part of a country and part of this world. It's worldwide. It has impacted the mankind as a whole. Therefore, it has impacted our youth, the youth in the United States, the youth in Australia, in Russia, in China, everywhere. Therefore, we must collectively try to get what is the best way out of it, right? The youth today should understand that. Try their best to be safe and make others feel safe. That is the important thing. And for that, there are certain protocols, like use of mask, as and when necessary, self-distancing as and when necessary, isolating yourself as and when necessary, informing the concerned authority and the members of the family if you feel sick, if you are infected, you got to. This is the way to try to stop. And the youth, they move around. It's quite a difficult thing for the youth to move around, mix around with the people, friends, and go and play. And there is more chances of getting that, right? So they should understand the responsibility. Again, that word comes, that I should be safe, I should make other people safe. Now, regarding the psychological impact on the youth, that which probably you want to know, is that there is a tremendous impact. There's no doubt about it. In you, in me. I walked into this hotel after 2 years. I walked after 2 years. But I was telling myself, you got to understand the protocols of keeping yourself safe. Same to you. And that's why it was the early days I said I'm unable to attend that. That is probably the thing. And this subject, which you could talk more, because I have had something which in future, if there's a chance, we could talk more around it. But unfortunately, our government lockdown didn't know how the protocol was probably understood by, and there are very highly educated people in the government in the country, but they did not bring it practically outside. The protocol procedures, the educating the people. You and me probably are educated. Some of the people I see them wearing masks under their nose. All this is not a way to take this. It is a serious matter. But the youth should understand that, and you should say that this is an impact on all the youth, not only in Nepal. And if there is like online education, take it seriously. In-person education, if you are safe, take it seriously. If you have lost some time, try to work hard to make up that. Get motivated to say that under these circumstances, we cannot, clear this coronavirus or COVID things, out of the atmosphere. You cannot do that. It is here. We have to learn to live with it. We have to learn to live with this. So they've got to learn to live with this. They've got to learn the protocols of living with this. They've got to learn that this is a difficult time. This is a difficult time, but they have to work hard, get motivated to that.
Thank you so much, sir. That was such a profound way of looking at it and relating coronavirus to how we can actually shape our lives for the better. Thank you so much for that wonderful sharing, sir. It's been a wonderful conversation with you. And I feel that I've learned so much and gained so much from your experience. Thank you so much.
No, your question's so intelligent that, I spoke what I thought about it.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for being wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talking to Sir today gave me such a surge of energy. I loved his concept of responsibility, authority and accountability. I think that just imbibing this sense of accountability can truly help to motivate each one of us to be better versions of ourselves. I also realized that to excel in his field, you need to have a lot of mental strength. And who better to learn that than from the man himself, the pilot who's got so much experience and just so much to share. Thank you so much for being an inspiration, sir. Thank you so much for coming and so honestly sharing about your life. The youth deserves an icon like you, and the youth is so glad to have you in our lives. Thank you.